Spotlight on America has pressed the FDA about heavy metals in baby food since 2021, asking critical questions in roughly 50 emails, broadcasting more than a dozen investigations over 3 years, and submitting multiple requests for interviews, all of which have been declined. Responses are often similar, like the FDA takes the issue of toxic elements in baby food very seriously, or the FDA continues to make steady progress on the issue of lead in baby food. When hundreds of kids were potentially poisoned from lead in Wanabata cinnamon applesauce, we compared the FDA data to our own. We contacted every state health department in the U.S. and discovered more kids and states were impacted than the FDA was reporting. After broadcasting that story, the FDA posted a statement that the agency and the CDC were both collecting data and not necessarily comparing notes, making an accurate case count impossible to confirm. Our follow-up inquiry was met with a familiar refrain from the FDA stating, "Our goal continues to be ensuring access to safe foods."
Our goal was to sit down with someone at the FDA to talk about the questions we've been raising for years. We asked for an interview for this special, and after 5 weeks of consideration, the agency declined to talk with us. We're not the only ones having a hard time getting answers from decision makers at the FDA. The leading voice on the Hill, who launched the congressional investigation into baby food makers and the FDA in 2021, publicly confronted the FDA's commissioner for the first time in a heated hearing this spring, frustrated that 3 years have gone by, little's been done, and kids across America are still consuming foods loaded with toxic heavy metals. While baby food is no longer on Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy's shopping list, it is still high on his list of concerns. 3 years have passed since his investigation, and kids across America are still consuming foods loaded with toxic heavy metals. How did we get here?
I thought that back in 2021, when we first released the report and there was tremendous attention, we were going to see a lot more action. We prompted the first ever kind of FDA action on this particular issue. It's called Closer to Zero.
Closer to Zero was supposed to limit heavy metals in baby foods by setting guidelines for industry and informing consumers about ingredients.
They didn't follow through.
Here we are in 2024, and the FDA's Closer to Zero timelines have been repeatedly moved back, with not one final limit having been set. We even discovered the agency quietly removed timelines from its website, making it impossible to hold them accountable. But look at this. We archived screenshots of the FDA site back in 2021. And you can clearly see what the agency promised: limits for lead and arsenic by April of 2024. Those dates were erased from the website and eventually replaced with this: no update.
This is unacceptable. Completely unacceptable.
In a recent hearing with FDA Commissioner Robert Califf, Krishnamurthy confronted him with the agency's Closer to Zero website.
I want to throw up here a screenshot of your website from today. So in terms of when, for instance, arsenic in baby food would be examined, no update. That's what it says, right?
I'll take your word for it. I can't see it from this distance.
Quite frankly, sir, I respectfully say that your Closer to Zero program at this point is closer to zero updates. And that's very, very disturbing.
Califf did not respond further to Closer to Zero. In the weeks following the hearing, the FDA changed its website again, now targeting the end of 2025 for final guidelines. How is America supposed to trust the agency that is supposed to protect the health of individuals, including these babies that are so vulnerable, when we can't even trust the deadlines that they set but keep moving back?
I don't know, and I think this is why people are angry. The whole Closer to Zero program looks like a zero to me at this point, and I'm very concerned.
Do you have an answer for why the FDA hasn't followed through on this?
I don't. And I don't know if it's a question of lack of resources. I don't know if it's industry resistance. I don't know if it's a lack of willpower or it's all of the above.
How concerned are you that the FDA is too influenced by industry?
I'm very concerned.
In response to questions about the FDA's lack of oversight on the baby food industry and absence of any standards for heavy metals, Commissioner Califf bounced the ball back to legislators, asking for the authority to require the baby food industry to test its products.
I think the best way to think about FDA in general is that we're referees. You all in Congress actually write the rule book. But what we can do, for example, in food for children, is to have the manufacturers be required to do the testing, which is the way the drug system works. The manufacturers of drugs have to test every batch.
You would like us to give you that regulatory authority?
Yes.
Turns out the agency already has the authority to do far more than it has when it comes to cracking down on manufacturers. Earlier this year, the nation's top law enforcement officials told the FDA to use the power it already has to make baby food safer. In this 44-page letter to the FDA, nearly 24 attorneys general explained to the FDA in great detail that finished product testing for lead and heavy metals can be considered a preventive control under the current regulatory structure, meaning the FDA can do it now. The law says the FDA can require manufacturers to test products for hazards. Then there's this provision in the Code of Federal Regulations that states the FDA may require food testing to address an identified or suspected food safety problem as FDA deems appropriate. So, for example, in 2021, when a congressional committee identified numerous baby foods tainted with dangerous levels of heavy metals, the FDA could have considered that a food safety problem and required the identified companies to test. We asked the agency if it considers heavy metals in baby food to be a food safety problem. They told us yes. But to this day, they have not required testing or set final limits for heavy metals. Meantime, Congress itself has not taken action to set limits or mandate testing. So states are stepping in. Remember Rudy Callahan, the little boy poisoned by lead in his applesauce?
House Bill 97, Senate Bill 723, Rudy's Law.
He is enshrined forever in a Maryland state law. Rudy's Law, signed just this May, will require manufacturers to test their products and eventually make the results available to the public with a QR code right on the jar. The law's architect, Jason Nunez, said it started with our investigations.
I was watching the news, I saw your story, and right away I knew that we needed to act.
I mean, the truth of this is that Congress has had every opportunity in the world for years to get this done, and it's become a partisan issue.
Yes,
the FDA has had every opportunity in the world to get this done for years. Should U.S. legislators and the FDA be taking a cue from you, given that you got this done in 90 days?
They have to step it up. They have to step it up. Children are being hurt. They eat this food every single day.
You met the Callahans, you met Rudy. How much did putting a little face and a little tiny body on the information change or motivate even more what you were doing?
Oh yeah, I lit a fire for sure.
Several other states are now considering similar legislation to make baby food safer. And as manufacturers navigate the new laws that will change the landscape of their business, there's a massive effort to hold them accountable in court. Inside, a scathing legal battle. Next.